I was living on the Bell family farm in Tennessee in 1817. Life was quiet and simple until everything started to change. At first it was small, unsettling things. Footsteps echoing through the hallways when no one was there. Objects moving on their own. Doors slamming shut for no reason. But the most terrifying part was the whispers at night. I would wake up to the voice of a woman calling my name. Low, hushed, but filled with anger and menace. The whispers came from the shadows, from the walls, even from the air itself. As the days passed, the activity grew worse. Doors flying open and slamming shut violently. Small objects being thrown across the room. Soft, twisted laughter that sometimes turned into screaming. It felt like the house itself was watching me, like every corner held an unseen threat. The entire Bell family began to feel the same fear, but no one dared to leave the farm. The nights on the farm had turned into real nightmares. It wasn't just noises or movements anymore. The entity started interfering directly in our daily lives. I remember that night clearly. I was carrying a bucket of water from the well when suddenly I felt something grab my leg tight, like a cold hand reaching up from the ground. I tried to scream, but my voice disappeared into thin air, like something was swallowing every sound. And it didn't stop with me. Grandpa John Bell kept getting bruised by an invisible force. Sounds of kicking and hitting came from every direction. Farm tools were thrown across the ground for no reason. The entity's voice spoke directly to him. "Your time is up. You won't escape me." As the days went on, Grandpa's injuries got worse. He looked exhausted all the time, and all of our faces were filled with terror. I knew this thing wasn't just playing around. It was out to destroy us completely. I'll never forget that night. I was alone in the kitchen when the banging and pounding started to get insane. Everything moved on its own. Chairs flipped over. Doors slammed shut violently, and the air itself felt like a heavy weight pressing down on my chest. Then, something strange appeared, or rather, I felt the presence of a dark woman circling me in the shadows. I couldn't make out her features clearly, but I felt her eyes piercing right through me. She whispered my name in a voice mixed with anger and hatred. "You won't escape. No one will survive me." John Bell, my father, was being targeted directly. Muffled screams followed him into every room, and sometimes I felt like something was striking him, paralyzing his movements. He became weak, both physically and mentally, and I knew the end was very close. Everything became completely unexplainable. Food thrown off the table for no reason. Messages written in blood on the walls, as witnesses described. Heavy footsteps moving behind us, even when the floor was empty. I realized we were facing a supernatural force. Not just a wandering spirit, but something clinging to death and torment. In the days that followed, the house became a real scene of terror. The hauntings didn't stop. They escalated to the highest levels of violence and mystery. I would walk through the rooms, and everything moved on its own. Dishes flying, doors slamming shut, and the entity whispering our names one by one. John Bell, my father, grew frighteningly weak. The entity targeted him directly. Invisible blows leaving clear bruises, constant threatening whispers keeping him in a state of panic. Sleep became impossible, and he would wake up terrified every night.
In the end, his body and spirit couldn't withstand the relentless physical and psychological attacks. John Bell died, worn out by the entity, leaving the family in perpetual fear. But the entity didn't stop with him. It continued to terrorize the family, proving that the Bell, which wasn't just a spirit, she was a dark force clinging to death and torment. To this day, the Bell Farm is considered one of the most haunted places in America. The story appears in historical records, eyewitness accounts, and has even inspired American horror films.